Welcome back. Let's turn our attention now to Taraba State in northeast Nigeria, where the state governorship election petition tribunal sitting in Abuja, Nigeria's federal capital territory, has nullified the election of Governor Darius Ishaku of the People's Democratic Party. The tribunal did not stop there. It went on to declare the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Aisha Al-Hassan, as the winner of the April 11, 2015 election. So how did the tribunal arrive at its judgment? The tribunal, led by Justice Musa Danladi Abubakar, ruled that Ishaku was not validly nominated by the PDP owing to the party's failure to conduct its primary election in Taraba State in line with Section 177 of the Electoral Act. The primary, which actually threw up Darius Ishaku as the candidate of the PDP, was really not conducted in Taraba State but in Abuja. So the tribunal held that the PDP conducted the December 11, 2014 primary in Abuja instead of Jalingo, the Taraba State capital, without giving any explanation to the Independent National Electoral Commission for why it chose to do so in violation of the Electoral Act. Now, the tribunal rules that all votes cast to the governor on April the 11th were wasted, declaring Al-Hassan, who scored the next highest votes, as the winner of the election. The tribunal therefore ordered INEC to immediately withdraw the certificate of return issued to the governor and issue a fresh one to Al-Hassan. The candidate of the APC, Al-Hassan, and her party had actually approached the tribunal to nullify the April 11 election on the grounds that it was characterized by overvoting, as the number of votes recorded during the election was more than the number of voters accredited by card reader. The tribunal, in its verdict, dismissed those allegations, holding that the mere reliance on accreditation using card reader was not sufficient proof of course, of overvoting. Now, here was the mood at the court shortly after that verdict was delivered. Well, that was the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, who has now been declared the governor by the tribunal. Let's now take a listen to what lawyers to the APC candidate Jumai Al-Hassan had to say about the ruling.
The petition from day one was founded on fundamental problem that afflicted PDP before the election, in that they were unable to produce a candidate. And it was unfortunate that by some kind of design, they still managed to get their candidate's name on the ballot box. The judgment of this court today is a landmark judgment, in that this is the first time in Nigeria that a governorship candidate is going to be returned on the basis of the doctrine of wasted votes. It has happened in cases of senators, House of Reps, but it has never happened in the governorship election matter. And that is thanks to the clarification that the Supreme Court has brought to this issue in a number of judgments in the last 4 or 5 years. It means that the era of impunity in party primary is gone. It is not only a lesson for PDP, it's a lesson for all political parties. The court was spot on because in this case, INEC did the right thing by coming to court on subpoena to give all relevant reports of candidates that emerged from party primaries, and that in their own state, Taraba, INEC went for monitoring. There was no primary. There was a formal report, official report of INEC, that there was no primary. And that PDP claimed later to have gone to the head office in Abuja to hold a midnight primary much later after the time for primary had been concluded. And you can see the consequence of that today. We thank God that the journey that started on April 11 today has reached some milestone. And we believe that Ajia has fought a good fight, and the people have given her the support, and it shows that she's actually a governor that is deserving of the trust that the Taraba people had in her. But you know, this is not the end of the road. There are opportunities for all the parties to further explore whatever grievance they have until we are through with under 21 days, after which, if they do not, Ajia deserves to be sworn as the governor of Taraba State, inshallah.
And if they do appeal?
If they do appeal, the present occupant of the office that the court has found out to have been a candidate at all that should have emerged can remain in office in the interim. It will remain, just be an interim governor until if they go on appeal and the outcome of the appeal goes otherwise. But which we are very, very optimistic that that cannot happen, given the very straightforwardness of the issues in this matter.
As my colleague have said, we found out after the election that PDP did not conduct its primaries at all, and that the same acting governor now was not nominated, neither was he sponsored by his political party. The crux of the matter is, Ajia Jummai Alhassan contested the election against no PDP candidate. And as you have heard from the court, the ideal thing to do in the circumstance is to return her as the person who have won the election.
Well, of course, as you heard one of the lawyers say there, the last has certainly not been heard of this case. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, has said it would appeal against the judgment of the tribunal. In a statement released by its national spokesperson, Olisa Metu, the party described the tribunal ruling as, quote, another evidence of executive interference in the judiciary, end of quote. It said the reason given by the tribunal for arriving at what it calls the bizarre decision was intriguing, adding that the judgment further exposed the contradictions and double standards inherent in most tribunal rulings against PDP's interests recently. Now, part of the statement reads, quote, it is rather curious and an irony that the Taraba Tribunal, sitting in Abuja on security grounds, faulted the conduct of PDP primaries shifted to the same Abuja on security reasons. End of quote. It went further to say that if the tribunal is faulting the party primaries as basis for its decision, it then means that no APC governorship candidate can stand the test, as their party never conducted any acceptable primaries in any of the states. The party urged its members across the country to remain calm, saying it would head to the Court of Appeal to challenge the verdict. Now, to discuss the tribunal ruling further, I'm now being joined on the program by a lawyer, Libros Oshoma. Libros, thank you very much for joining us on the program. First, Libros, what do you make of this ruling? It's quite surprising and in some quarters shocking, because nobody saw this coming.
Yeah, basically, nobody saw this coming, and then first and foremost, I would say it's a sign, to our politicians that whatever you do, always try as much as you can to dot the I's and cross the T's. Ensure that you play by the books, because, like they say, who comes to equity must come with clean hands. But be that as it may, I would also want to toe the line of the PDP National Publicity Secretary. Not too long ago, the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court did hold that for security reasons, tribunals were allowed to sit in Abuja. And so with this judgment, basically, the kernel of this judgment is the fact that the primaries didn't hold, which are pre-election matters though, not that the primaries didn't hold, that he held in Abuja, and that same tribunal also, for security reasons, is sitting in Abuja. And so, even though the Supreme Court had heard that the tribunal can sit in Abuja, but, these are some of, it's quite unfortunate the way we hold on mechanically to interpretations of our laws, And so that is why, in looking at this, I think the place where the primary was conducted shouldn't have ordinarily been the business of the tribunal, because for me, these are technical issues, they are technicalities. And the question the tribunal, I expect the tribunal should to be looking at is the fact that the primaries was held in Abuja. Did this substantially affect, the outcome of the election, the primaries? And then also the outcome of the election that was conducted. But the tribunal did also say that the votes that were counted for PDP were a waste on the ground that the primaries that they conducted was not ought not to have been conducted in Abuja. For me, basically, I think the tribunal, my reason anyway, the tribunal went too far on that, because it's as if the tribunal had to look for any and everything, just any opportunity to sack, the governor. But we should have passed this area, in modern times. I expect the tribunal to look more into the election that was conducted. The election that was conducted in April. That is the business of the tribunal, and not what happened before the election.
Can I just ask you?
Even though some people have argued that what happened before the election also can form some part.
Yeah, since it's in the Electoral Act anyway.
You said what?
I mean, since it is in the Electoral Act, because in taking its decision, the tribunal cited Section 177 of the Electoral Act, saying that the PDP violated it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What I am saying is that these are in most cases before now, these are ordinary pre-election matters that are not matters stricto sensu before within the jurisdiction of the tribunal. These are matters that parties in the party will take up against the candidate at the Federal High Court, arguing that the candidate for the election ought not to have been nominated on the ground that elections were not held, in compliance with the provisions of the rule. But in this case, the tribunal was constituted to look into what transpired on the day of election, and if what transpired was, enough to have declared a winner. I basically think that now going back to whether elections were conducted, it's just like it's akin to what happened in Amechi's case. And what happened in that matter was not a tribunal matter. It was a Federal High Court matter that eventually went to Supreme Court. When the Supreme Court did rule that the unlawful substitution, that was an unlawful substitution, and then the Supreme Court also ruled that victory belongs to the party, that the victory in any election belongs to the party and not to the candidate. And so that was what made Amechi governor. But the Electoral Act was subsequently amended and the Constitution that if you do not stand for election, you cannot, reap the benefit of that election.
Okay.
So in that manner, and then also quickly, the tribunal, after making that pronouncement, the tribunal left every other thing hanging. Left every other hanging. There was no pronouncement as to, what now happens. No, but
the tribunal actually ruled. The tribunal actually ruled that INEC should immediately withdraw the certificate of return it gave to the governor and issue a fresh one to the APC candidate.
So in that case, basically, in that case, for me, I think I doubt if this judgment would stand the test of time, basically, because looking at the decisions, previous decisions in our superior courts of record, I really don't, I would not, and most especially also, coupled with the recent Supreme Court decision in Wike's case, where the Supreme Court had to cite the doctrine of necessity to say that it has become necessary because of the security challenges in the River State, it became necessary for the tribunals to sit in Abuja. Would it not also be argued that, because of the security challenges in Jalingo at that time, that it now became necessary for primaries to be conducted outside of this place, even though the rule says that the primaries must be conducted in that place. You know, so these are all the issues that when Wike's judgment was delivered in Supreme Court, I did say that with this judgment, the judiciary have boxed itself into a corner by introducing what you call a doctrine of necessity. And so now, the easy way out for most issues will be doctrine of necessity.
Now, can I just ask you another question, Libros? Let me ask you another question, Libros. Quite surprising, and you're a lawyer, so I want you to clarify this. The tribunal ruled on an issue that was not brought before it by the plaintiff, so to speak, in this case. I'm talking about the APC and its candidates. They did not actually approach the tribunal asking it to disqualify the governorship candidate of the PDP on the grounds that he was not validly nominated by his party. It was not an issue at all. Can a court actually assume, or can a court actually rule on an issue that is not before it? Because it appears that's what has happened in this case. Because as we saw, all the issues that the APC canvassed, the APC and its candidate canvassed before this tribunal, the tribunal dismissed. The issue of overvoting, card reader, for instance, it dismissed all of that.
This is how we basically make a mockery of the system. You know, it's like the tribunal went outside issues that were raised. Yes, you can formulate issues, distill issues from the facts of the case. But all the issues that were before the court, all the facts pleaded in the matter, all the issues raised in the matter were the outcome of what transpired on this April 11 election now, and not what transpired before then. And the tribunal, rather than confine itself to the issues that were raised before it, rather than confine itself to the facts pleaded before it, the tribunal went on its own, fishing for evidence of what happened before elections were even conducted. And, you know, so that is why, for me, I think it's a bit laughable that this time and age, we still have issues where, you know, judgment are delivered by the tribunal and we begin to look over our shoulders whether somebody is somewhere dictating the tune. And that is why, for me, basically, I look at Nigeria and I laugh. When PDP were in government, it was easy to hear matters like this, and we point accusing fingers at PDP. Now APC is in government, we are still hearing issues like this, and then you now begin to look in the direction of APC. It shouldn't be. The judiciary should be an independent arm of government that should interpret the law irrespective of whose office goes. But when you begin to interpret laws and then you begin to go out to fish for evidence and raise issues that parties were not at liberty to address, because if these issues were raised by APC, probably the PDP would have been able to, you know, respond to these issues and clear the air and even cite, you know, doctrine of the necessity or give reasons why these elections were conducted in Abuja in line with the recent Supreme Court decision. But not giving parties opportunity to even address you on it, and then you spring a surprise on them to say, look, I dismiss all these other issues that the petitioner raised before me, but I have found one on my own. Not giving parties the opportunity to even address you on it. For me, I think that is not good law. It's really not good law. That's why I think if this matter goes upstairs, it might not stand the test of time. But anyway, this is Nigeria, like we all say. Let's see how it will go. Whether we will still also look up someday and say victory for democracy, or kudos to the judiciary, or we would say truly we need to begin to look in another direction.
But doesn't this all speak to the issue of internal democracy in political parties? That our parties themselves too need to do things the right way and do things by their own constitution. If your own party constitution, for instance, says party primaries should be conducted here, the Electoral Act says party primaries should be conducted here, then you know, it just would make sense to play by your party's rules and the Electoral Act as well, because whether we like it or not.
That's what I said when I started in my opening statement. I said also one of the reasons I will look at this judgment and say, look, now the politicians, that is why it's a lesson for all of them. That is why when you play, in your game of politics, you must play by the rules.
By the rules.
You learn to dot your I's and cross your T's. Because any loophole you leave might turn around to hurt you someday. We know how these people hold primaries, how candidates are imposed. It's not limited to one party. All of them. How candidates are imposed, how godfathers will hijack the entire process, and their preferred candidates will eventually emerge. In the last dispensation, we knew of so many primaries that were conducted in Abuja. At the end of the day, candidates will emerge. So all of these also are pointers to the fact that it is high time our judiciary, our politicians need to sit back, and look inward and ask themselves, how do we truly learn to make it work? But the judiciary can go a long way in helping them, not by this kind of judgment, but by the kind of judgment that people will look and say, truly, yes, the court has made a pronouncement. There were errors here and there, because also the court also is gradually moving to that direction. A situation where court will leave, its areas of jurisdiction and go to sit in Abuja while they claim insecurity. And it is a slap on our security forces. Our security forces
exactly, and I agree perfectly with you.
For judiciary.
I agree perfectly with you, because it should be the responsibility of the government to provide security
now,
anyway.
All the tribunals will go sit in Abuja.
I think I agree perfectly with you, Libros Oshoma. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
My pleasure.
Actually should be the responsibility of the government to provide security for its institution anywhere at all in the country. And so this whole idea of a tribunal sitting in Abuja for security reasons actually is difficult to comprehend, because it actually goes to show that the government cannot provide security to protect its own institutions. Well, we'll just wait and see what happens. So that's it on the program. We thank you very much for joining us. If you want to watch it again, it's simple. Just go to our website, tv360nigeria.com. You'll find the program and lots more there. And you can also watch us on YouTube by subscribing to our YouTube channel. It's actually youtube.com/TV360 Nigeria. Or follow us on Google Plus at TV360 Nigeria, or like us on Facebook. The address is facebook.com/TV360 Online. You can also follow us on Twitter. Our handle is at TV360 Online. Thank you very much once again for watching. We'll see you next week.